Hi everyone, welcome to another spotlight video. I have my friends from Viably with me, Liz Beavers and Danielle Livy. Say hello, y'all.
Hey
Hey
y'all.
guys.
This is always so fun when this is a partnership that was born out of an instant connection with these ladies. It was just like, oh yeah, we're all doing the same thing. We're all working toward a common goal and we all happen to have very similar senses of humor. So we have check-ins often that we eventually get to the point, but there's a lot of shenanigans in between. So tell me first, and you can kind of tag team this. What is Viably?
Let's see. I'll take a stab, and Danielle, then you are absolutely welcome to
Sounds
chime
good.
in. You know, we tell it so often. Viably is the digital banking solution and working capital provider for e-commerce sellers. We offer business banking products, and we also help provide the funding that e-commerce sellers need to help grow sustainably at scale.
I think she nailed it.
I think that's awesome.
Sure, I've done it a few times.
It's like you've done this before.
Yeah, because you two do most of the conferences. So you do the pitching and the positioning so what are your titles at Viably?
So I am our head of marketing at Viably and dabble in all things across all of the teams. So a little bit of product, a little bit of sales support, but marketing is my home.
And then on my end, I am product marketing and partnerships. So you could also say that there's a lot of hats being worn, focusing on what's happening, coming up in the product, what's coming soon from a product standpoint. Danielle and I do a lot of the user experience in terms of the language that they're going to interact with when they get to Viably's platform. And then also from a partnership standpoint, I get to interact with lovely folks like yourself, Liz, and go out and meet and find additional strategic partners to really help us get well aligned in the e-commerce space so that we're helping serve all the gaps that our sellers need.
That's awesome. So this is what you do now. Liz, what did you want to be when you were little? What did you want to be when you grew up?
This is a truly laughable question, and it's one that I haven't thought about in a while, so kudos for asking it. My mom is going to get such a kick out of this. I verbatim wanted to be a manatee doctor. Real niche, I know, but I had such a funky obsession with manatees. Like, my ongoing birthday gift was someone adopted one for me so that I could like see the manatee from afar and get like the postcards about the creature that I was sponsoring. And I for sure was like, yeah, I live by the water, grew up in Virginia Beach. And I was like, of course it makes sense. I'm going to be a manatee doctor, no brainer. And here we are now working in product marketing for fintech. Pretty stretch.
Maybe you can manatee doctor on the side.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
side
Because
hustle
I know
for sure.
so much
Side
about marine
hustle.
biology.
Manatee doctor, just I won't get into all that. School loans have come back and I thought, could I work this full-time job I have and do the side gigs that I do and also go to school full-time so that I don't have to pay, I can just make more school loans. So you could do that too, manatee doctor. You need some degrees for that. Hot tip. Danielle, how about you? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh my gosh, I switched like every year what I wanted to be, I think. But toward the end of, middle school and high school, I was really into sports medicine and like orthopedic stuff and breaking bones and sprained ankles and all of that. So I really thought like someday I was going to be this big, sideline trainer for like a professional sports team or something like that. But again, lots of schooling to get to that point. So leaned a little more into the creative side and went the journalism route. So that's where I ended up.
Well, so in a way, you both wanted to be healers, and now you're healing e-commerce finances.
I love that spin.
So cheesy. I don't have any.
I love the stretch that it took to get to that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It didn't take me. I didn't even strain a muscle. I'm sorry, because you could have fixed it.
No need for your sideline work. Yeah.
I wanted to be a ballerina with a detective agency attached to it. So that has nothing to do with what I do now. but
So Nancy Drew.
was she a ballerina? I don't know. But...
Oh my gosh, no, detective series. She was like sleuthing
I know,
hard.
I know, but I didn't know if she was
on the ballerina side. Yeah, fair.
So you guys worked together at a different company before Viably. What was that? It was like a different type of company in a different industry, right?
Yeah, so that's actually kind of the cool, interesting backstory of Viably is that I think 80% of our company, we all worked together at a previous company. So when our CEO, Duran, kind of came up with the idea for Viably, he went and he likes to say, got the band back together. And so a large group of us came and helped build Viably to where it is today.
I have this dream that all of us that get along so well will end up forming a company together one day, and maybe we'll all live in a big compound, although that's also sort of culty and I don't want to do that necessarily. But I think that's so cool that he knew he had a good team and the dynamic was obviously good, the culture was obviously good, and you just carried that into this crazy industry. How did he pick e-commerce?
So e-commerce kind of came about as a part of the full test of what we were building. We started with a digital banking platform for small businesses. And what we found as we kind of started to test and go to market and, really get out there was that e-commerce business owners were adopting the platform at a higher rate. And that's just naturally because e-commerce is incredibly digitally savvy. It's not scary to use a digital bank account when your entire life is built on digital platforms. So when they kind of came and started, giving us lots of feedback and feature questions and things like that, it kind of became very easy to just pivot our minds to say, this is our focus, this is our target, let's truly build this for this audience. And that was in the early days. So back in 2021, early 2022 is when we kind of made the full pivot away from all things SMB to just really focus on e-commerce business owners.
This is a crazy industry, isn't it?
It is.
Wild.
I was going to ask you, tell me the story of Viably, but you just did. So let's talk a little bit about this industry. What have been the biggest surprises to you since you got into this? You go to conferences and you have conversations with industry providers. So let's focus on the provider side of things first. Liz, you might be able to speak to this, but I think Danielle, you probably could too, because you're on a lot of meetings too. But what was your biggest surprise about the service provider arm of our industry?
I think what is really surprising, especially coming from the background that we did, our previous company that we all worked together on was in the IT space. And there's a lot of vendors who do a lot of really similar things that organizations need in order to perform their core functions. So pivoting here, I think what's just generally surprising about the landscape is how many tools sellers genuinely need to be successful. It's not one of those just dumb luck. There is a lot that an individual seller needs in their arsenal to genuinely be able to tackle effectively scaling, be it in Amazon, be it omni-channel. They need a lot at their fingertips. So I think from a service provider standpoint, what's been incredible to me is the acknowledgement that you cannot and you should not do it all. And I think that's a breath of fresh air coming from a big IT and acquisition space, is that everyone respectfully understands that each service provider has their niche and they have what they excel at. And that's why they want to partner with the best of breed so that they can recommend those solutions and not try to be the do-all be-all singular solution.
Danielle, how about you? What's been the biggest surprise to you about the service provider network?
I think the biggest surprise for me has been everyone is in it together. Going back to our IT conference days, you're on the expo floor with all of these other service providers, but nobody ever spoke to one another. It was everyone was competing against each other. There was no back and forth, no relationships, things like that. And I think that was the biggest change for me that was so exciting in this space of e-commerce was, you know, you get there, you get to a show floor and everyone knows each other. Everyone is friends and everyone wants to work together. And, you know, I've gotten there by myself and somebody from another company is over helping me set up my booth, you know, which is just insane. That just wasn't how the world was, you know, 5-10 years ago in some of the other industries we've been in. And I think just from a partnerships perspective, you know, I don't think I truly understood the dynamics and how much partnerships play such a pivotal role in the e-commerce space until we really got going, because it's crazy how many companies are excited to do co-marketing activities together. And selfishly, I love content. Content is my world. So to be able to see the partners, you know, want to do that with you and you're not begging and pleading for that, you know, everyone's raising their hand to say, come work with us, let's do this together. It's amazing because, you know, in so many other industries, you're relying on paid media to find your leads. And in e-commerce and this service provider ecosystem, a lot of it is organically driven. It's having conversations like this and just getting your name out there and plugging into different pockets of the industry itself.
I love that you said that. So to both of you, Liz, you talked about there are service providers and there are niche service providers, but even within the same niche, there are service providers with different capabilities. I love when I talk to a service provider, because that's what I do almost all day when I'm not talking to sellers and brand owners at Decom Cooperative, that everybody says it's a blue ocean. It's a blue ocean. There are very few companies in the space that are like, no, you cannot ever talk to one of my competitors because I'm the only one that can do what I do. There is a lot to go around, and there are new merchants entering online marketplaces every single minute of every single day. I think that is the right math to use. But Danielle, to your point, I mean, Prosper Show is like a family reunion for me. That was my this last one. And I love this community and I love how people hold each other up and support each other. I love that we're doing some things to empower the women community of e-commerce. I love that we're doing some things to promote, you know, solopreneur ventures that happen. I love when new people come to Prosper Show or come to a trade show that they're supported and people help them set up their booth. It's just such a friendly, loving place to be. And that was my biggest surprise coming into this industry, is that like, wow, I have a home now.
Exactly.
And I don't mean to sound like little orphan Annie or anything like that, but it was just a really unexpected benefit of coming into this industry.
Agree.
Almost 10 years ago. Good grief, I'm old. Wow. So, okay, so that's the service provider side of things, but obviously you've had to have discussions with sellers and brand owners about their businesses and about the way they operate and about their technology stack and all that jazz. So Danielle, let's start with you. What's been your biggest surprise, the thing that you did not expect in talking to sellers and brand owners in this space?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the seller's perspective, one of the most surprising things has been just how humble these business owners are. You could be talking to a seller who's had like a multi-million-dollar exit last week, and they're just, you know, kicking off a new idea, launching into a new category, building a new software because they saw a problem. And it's just like talking to a friend. And it's just amazing to me how these sellers, how their brains work, their minds work. They're executing these multi-million-dollar businesses, and it's just like talking to a friend. And, you know, they're saying, hey, and they're so humble about their business. They always downplay their numbers when we're talking to them from a financial perspective. You know, and so we're always like, wait, no, that's huge. That's amazing. There's things we can do together, you know, with
I'm only 8 figures. That's all.
Yeah. It's like, I'm only an 8-figure
so
business. You know, so it's just funny to me, how they can create these things and grow these things at the rate that they do it. And then at the same time, everyone is willing to share their learnings. So you go to these conferences and everyone speaking on stage is a seller. These aren't like talking heads who have never done it before. These are people who learned how to do it at all different levels of skill, small, medium, large. And then they show up and they want to share. They want to share their learnings and help other business owners grow. So I think for me, it's really, how humble they are, but also their ability to want to share and teach and grow anyone else to do the same things that they did.
Yeah. And I think on that line too, on my end, in terms of things that I've been totally surprised by, it's like their willingness to fail and own it. And it's something that's so refreshing. It's okay to fail because there's no better way to learn than figuring what your misstep was. And just like Danielle mentioned, sharing that education with others so somebody else doesn't make that fatal step. I think that's something that's been huge. And just, again, kind of that willingness to share sentiment. There's been a lot of customers that we've talked with, like on our customer advisory board, folks who we're seeing at shows, especially our advisory board members. They've been really, really transparent in terms of what they're experiencing, what they expect, and they provide really valuable insight to us from a product standpoint of where we can do better to help meet those needs, because they know that they're not alone in raising their hand and expressing that. So I think that that's something that's like absolutely amazing. The other thing that I've been really surprised by is from a financial standpoint, and I have to say, first and foremost, like, I don't handle the finances in my house. Math has never, and honestly will never, math for me. And I'm okay with that. I've admitted it. But I think it's wild that people are in this business and that they still don't have a full understanding of their finances. And I know that there's a lot to wrap your head around, but how they can keep growing and keep pushing as hard as they are, and there not be as much clarity into how they're operating or where they can hit, as you like to say, Liz, like operational excellency from a financial standpoint. And I think that's something that I'm just like blown away with. I'm like, you are so damn successful. And there's something so simple that you haven't seen that could really make or break your business. So I think that's something that's been surprising. And I think has been an excellent area for us where we've been able to come in and help educate folks so that they can continue to be successful, because that's what we want at the end of the day. We want to partner with them so that they do have that full broadband understanding of what's happening on the financial side of their business so that they can keep bringing in those dollars. They can keep investing more, and they can keep incredibly like scaling their shop. So I think those are kind of my big surprises from a seller standpoint.
Well, when you think about, in today's landscape in particular, when you think about an e-commerce merchant and what working capital could do for them, right? So it's not necessarily, oh my gosh, I have to pay off this credit card because it's maxed out and I have to buy more inventory, but it's sort of moved more. Sure, there's some of that. I could actually use that personally. But it could be the difference between expanding to another marketplace. It could be the difference between, or not. Or it could be the difference between expanding to an international marketing, Amazon marketplace. It could be the difference between adding a new product line. It could be the growth available when you have that infusion of capital has changed since I got into the industry. And incidentally, when I got into the industry, there weren't a whole lot of people who did what you did. There were always private investors and that kind of stuff. And then there was the rise of the aggregator and all the exits that happened during that. And then there was the decline of the aggregator model where it like calmed down a little bit. And now there are still aggregators out there, but it's not all aggregator all the time. So people are looking to really scale their business. They're looking to really optimize their business. They're looking to build something sustainable that they can either exit or they can pass on to future generations. And that's what I love so much, because I love these little niche brands where someone had an aha.
Yeah.
And, there's not this and I want this, so I'm going to make it. And that's why I got so bummed during the aggregator days, because a lot of those brands, those like entrepreneur brands were, okay, like I got to a certain EBITDA and now I'm going to exit. And they didn't necessarily build something new. They, you know, went to Fiji for a week and then they were like, well, what next? I think I'm going to go work for this, you know? So I was really afraid that innovation and entrepreneurship was going to take a nosedive, but it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, aren't you completely blown away when you talk to a new or potential customer? Okay, what do you sell? And then they tell you and you're like, huh?
Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
You know, that's always my thought. Why didn't I think of that?
I think it's the why didn't I think of it? And I also think some of the sellers just have really beautiful stories as to why it led to that thought process. Like I was talking to a guy the other day, and he had a whole family backstory in terms of something they struggled with their kids as to why it led them to be excelling and selling in the category that they are. So again, it's such a human business. And I think that's like something that people have really missed. And I think is just, again, such a breath of fresh air when you're working with the folks we are in e-commerce.
I'm such a nerd about that stuff. There's a show in New York called New York Now. Surprise. And it's in August, and it's like a big bazaar. So there are lots and lots of brands and product lines there. They're selling to brick and mortar. They're wanting people to come place their orders. They're selling to resellers. Some of them are selling on Amazon and other marketplaces. Some of them aren't. But last year there was this incubator brand section. It was on a blue carpet, and it was all the people that had come up with a product and had a product, but they weren't necessarily like there yet. So they have a logo and they have like some business. Like this one couple, so cute, such a great personable couple, but they had built this game that was the bad Christmas movie bingo game, where it was just like a dry erase board and you were supposed to play the game while you watched a bad Hallmark Christmas movie. And it had things like, you know, successful woman feels sad in her heart, or corporation is trying to ruin Christmas, or Candace Cameron Bure, you know, and it sold really well brick and mortar at certain really niche retail places, but they hadn't really thought about like where they wanted to sell it next. There was another guy who made these, he has a dance and choreography background, and he made these eggs for plantar fasciitis because the balls aren't always, like using a tennis ball isn't always the best thing you can do. So it was just curved a little. One day I talked to him and he said his apartment was full of eggs. It was a hatchery. It just full of these silicone eggs. And then the next day he said, I sent away all my eggs. And I said, where'd you send them to? And he said, QVC. So he got this huge QVC. But another guy had this thing hanging off his head that he invented during COVID because he was changing his baby. And he wanted something to entertain the baby. So it was a headband thing hanging off.
Like a mobile.
Yeah, it's called a dingle dangle. And he was wearing it on the show floor. So of course that attracted attention. But I love that. And I mean, not all service providers are interested in talking to people who haven't launched on a marketplace yet. But I love talking to that brand new incubator entrepreneur who's like, I had this idea and I just had to make it. And then it's so exciting when they get to the point where they're successful on Amazon, they're selling on Walmart, they sell into brick and mortar. It's just explosive and great. But that's the thing that's so exciting to me, is the creativity that's involved in this industry and the love and camaraderie that we get from the service provider network. And I'm spotlighting you and I'm talking too much. I'm sorry about that. Tell me, now that you've been in the e-commerce biz for a couple years now, where do you think e-commerce is heading? What is the most exciting thing on the horizon? What are the most dangerous things out there? Look into your crystal balls, each of you, and then take turns and tell me the future.
You want me to take this one to start?
You can kick it off, yeah. I'm sure we have a lot of very similar ideas, but yeah.
I was about to say, we probably have this.
We share a brain.
But my thinking is that kind of as e-commerce has grown over the past few years, especially since COVID, there's been a giant influx of tools. We've talked about all the service providers. There's a tool for just about everything. The number of tools it takes to actually make you successful, like Liz mentioned earlier, it's crazy. And I think what you're going to start to see is platform fatigue. So the Viably team at heart, we are software people. So we're always kind of keeping an eye on the market itself. From just a platform and tools perspective. And, one thing that we're starting to hear a lot of is nobody wants to manage 20 something different tools. You don't want to have to figure out 20 something passwords to get into these tools. And then how do you keep all of these tools up to date consistently with different pieces of information? So if you're tracking things in an Excel sheet, how are you updating all of your QuickBooks and all of your different tools that you need to use to be successful? So I think we're heading into an era where, forgive the marketing language, but it's going to be more of that all-in-one solutions, those tools that are kind of in the landscape that start to either build out together, which is exactly what Viably is trying to do. We want to be kind of your financial management tool so that you can do your banking, your funding and working capital, and all of your kind of forecasting and growth planning and things like that all in one place, instead of having to kind of jockey that between, your digital bank over here, your Excel sheet over here, your QuickBooks over here, and maybe none of it's actually talking to each other and reconciling anything until you talk to your CPA in March, which is generally what most people do. So I think there's going to be a need on the service provider side for more integrations between us. And I think that's really where these partnerships start to kind of flourish. And that's especially where Liz is hyper focused is, what tools and service providers can we work with at Viably to make it so that working capital is just a click away from the tools that they're using every day. So even at that point, you don't necessarily have to always be inside Viably. You can be in your favorite tools of choice. And then when you're doing your inventory research or getting ready to do a product restock or anything like that, you can click a button and get working capital from Viably. That's the dream. That's kind of what our vision is toward the future. So it's really kind of that shift from 20 different platforms to how do we integrate multiple platforms that you're going to use 5 every day. So as a service provider landscape and really start working together and partnering to make that a reality.
Yeah. And I think on that end too, sorry to jump over you, Liz, just to kind of amplify what Danielle was saying, I think especially the integration piece is going to be really key. And I think that's going to be a bit of a learning curve for sellers. They know the solutions that they use, they go log in, they use that, and that's kind of that. So I think that's going to be a little bit of a learning hump for them to get over and just a new experience. But I think those who are, Danielle and I've talked about this before, being like truly tech savvy and like aligning with the times. I think that's something that's also so cool about so many of the sellers is so many of them are like keeping up with how the folks that they are marketing to and that are buying their products, they're staying on top of that. So they're going to have to do the same for themselves. And that's where I think being educated, aligning with service providers who want to integrate with the best of breed in the business is going to be big for them. And I think they're going to have huge dividends of success on the other hand of that. The other piece that I kind of see from a crystal ball, and I know a lot of people have talked about this, and it's big buzz, happening with the government too. But it's what's going to happen with TikTok. Honestly, I think that there's some really cool stuff that's happening on TikTok Shop. I have been getting targeted. I haven't bought into it. Danielle, I know, can't say the same as she's sitting in her, the crisscross chair that went viral?
My crisscross chair, TikTok Shop.
But I think that's where, and it was funny, Liz, because on one of the webcasts that we did together earlier this year on like 2024 trends, somebody on there mentioned, they were like, TikTok Shop is giving me like early Amazon Day vibes. And that's where I think there is going to be some seriously cool stuff that's going to come out for sellers who
the Tarte makeup bundle from TikTok
that I put on before this.
There you go.
Take a week,
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's it is, folks are always talking about wanting to expand to a new marketplace, work with a new platform. I really went out of focus there. Is my crystal ball at work. But I think that that's one of the big ones is like kind of going with bigger name platforms that are doing some really innovative things to keep up with that notion of I'm an innovator e-commerce seller is going to be big too. So obviously we'll be curious what the government's decision is going to be on a TikTok side of things, but I think it's worth investigating in the places that sellers don't feel comfortable, but pushing yourself and pushing that boundary.
I agree with that. A+ to both of you on those predictions. That was great stuff. I think it's all gonna just get bigger. And I mean, if you look at what Amazon's done in the last several years in terms of trying to keep up with the times and change like all the additions to brand registry and all that kind of stuff, Amazon's definitely trying to stay competitive in the face of other marketplaces. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But I'm happy to have Viably as a partner, and I'm happy to be friends with both of you. And I thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to be linking to the awesome content. Danielle says that she's a content person, and bless you both. You send me content so that I can put it out there, but we'll be linking to the assets that we've done together so far. If you want to contact the team at Viably, this digital banking solution is no joke, y'all. I mean, it's cool stuff. So take advantage of the resources that are available to you, research them, talk to this team. They're awesome. They're super friendly, and they're constantly improving their tech. The thing that impresses me the most about the Viably platform is the actual like user interface and how it explains what's next. It explains what you're doing. And I think that a lot of softwares miss on that. A lot of softwares don't have the right cues. They don't have the right explanations. You don't know what the heck you're doing in there. You give up. I am an X out, like, screw this. I should probably have Johnny edit that out, but I probably won't. But no, I mean, like, I can't. And the thing is, these brand owners and these sellers, they're so busy. They don't have time to figure out a software. So the fact that you've made Viably so easy to use because you're explaining every little step of the way, kudos to you on that. And I can't wait to see what's next.
Thanks for having us, Liz. This was a blast.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And we'll see you all at our next Spotlight video. If you need Viably, your contact details are in the notes. And I'm Liz. I will see you next time.